Okay, hello everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Black Box Podcast. Today is another personal vlog segment, and the thing I wanted to talk about was Vice President Mike Pence, who has been in the news a lot lately. Following the major harvest moon in America, he made the statement that Americans are going back to the moon, and Americans will go to Mars. And isn't this just a really fascinating time to be living in right now? And just the thought of going to Mars and, like the future of Mars exploration is really about to begin. And keep in mind, Stephen Hawking himself said it. Within 500 years, Mars will not have its own inhabitants. Mars will also have cities, and they will even have their own type of Martian cuisine. There'll be a very distinct Martian culture where, humans from Earth have been, transplanted and taken on a new life on Mars, and that Mars is the future. I think space exploration is just absolutely fascinating, and I think we need to go beyond Mars. And those were some of the things that people were talking about following Mike Pence's speech. Like, is Mars the sort of end all? Well, no, space is the final frontier, right? And I've always been fascinated with the concept of trying to put life on Uranus. Maybe we used to pronounce it Uranus, but yeah, I just sort of started calling it Uranus a few years ago. And you might think that that sounds crazy, but I've always been fascinated with the idea of, because Uranus is not like some of the other gas giants. It does not have the massive winds that we have at Neptune, which blow at 1,200 miles per hour. And also, at the very sort of, not yet the core of Uranus, but kind of the mantle area, we do have a sort of compound of water and ammonia. And you can look up the models of this online. Yeah, there's like water, ammonia that is just frozen, and I've always been interested in exploring that more. And yeah, Neptune as well has sort of water in the mantle area, but they've just sort of ruled out living in Neptune's upper atmosphere for now because of the massive winds. And even if you look at the planet Uranus, you see that they do not have any giant dark spots, which are storms. The Great Red Spot on Jupiter is a storm, right? I've been looking at this for a while, and I actually composed a science fiction story once about living on Uranus, and basically they sort of live in shielded hovering stations. Everybody has their own sort of independent pod that has a giant shield that deflects itself from the winds of Uranus, and they are able to harvest water from the Uranus mantle, and they do not eat any food, but they just sort of ingest vitamins and mineral shots. And when I say shots, I mean, yeah, like a shot glass, like that you would have in the bar, not that they're injecting. They just sort of do it all via liquid. And that after Mars, Uranus will become a destination for people to colonize. And that's science fiction, by the way. And if you think that sounds a little crazy, it's like, in 2014, I wrote that story, and I told it to my girlfriend at the time, and I think it's the reason that she broke up with me. And I really remember feeling that very consciously. It's like, holy crap, are we really ready for this? Are we really ready to talk about science fiction? And 3 weeks later, she broke up with me after I told her about that story. So I think that's the reason, and I'm not making a joke. I think she was just like, I gotta get out. I gotta get out. I gotta get out. Well, anyway, that turned out to be a horrendous failure, like most things in my life and my career. But, as they say, onward and upward, and the whole talk of space exploration has just been always of great fascination to us, whether it's, children learning about the moon and the planets and the solar system, or once you get into adulthood and you just learn about all the different astronomical wonders that are out there. Like learning about galaxies and learning about other stars and learning about, cocoons that are around black holes and just the possibilities that exist within our universe and what is even, beyond. It is fascinating. I love looking at photos of the Hubble Deep Field. I love looking at photos of galaxies. The Sombrero Galaxy has always been fascinating, and just M100 as well was one of my favorites as a kid. So I think it's really great to hear the Vice President talk about future space exploration. Sadly, these things are very expensive, and sadly, it seems like the first people that live on Mars will never get to come back. And I mean, would you do it? Would you want to live on Mars if you were to be sort of like the test trial individual? You would get a chance to go into space. You'd get a chance to have the experience of your lifetime, but there's no coming back. Anyway, I think it's amazingly fascinating, and I would really debate it. It's like, would I want to go? Would I want to leave Earth? I mean, leave Earth and never be able to return? I mean, wouldn't it be nice to just spend a year on Mars and be able to come back? But we're not there yet. And this is all just, theorizing right now what is going to happen. Be an absolute dream for me, though, to live on Uranus. It's like I said, I even have prototype models of space pods and, yeah, Uranus doesn't have floating cities in my world. It's just sort of like everybody has their own little space pod, and they take smaller pods to move from unit to unit, and the city is just like a sort of a giant mass of these sort of floating space pods, And that was just, a science fiction thing that I'd hope to explore more and to expand upon in my future writings. However, as a writer, I feel that science fiction is something that is very difficult to always keep producing new material and to keep it fresh and to keep it original and not make it too silly, like so many of our great science fiction writers have had kind of low points, and maybe you can think of a few. But anyway, the other things that are very interesting to explore aside from space exploration are the oceans. Like, I would love to just know more about what's going on in our own ocean. And I always will remember as a kid, the hearing the statement that oceans do not have a NASA, meaning no one is funding deep ocean exploration. And that is just, another mind-blowing subject about all the wonders that lie within our oceans. And also, hopefully, in these discussions of futuristic technology, we will talk more about creating floating cities. We will talk more about creating ocean farms and just really utilizing our oceans and keeping, plastic and pollution out of them. By the year 2050, they're saying that there will be more plastic than fish in the ocean. More plastic than fish. That's crazy. It's ridiculous. But in all terms of that, it sounds like people are more likely interested in building a city on Mars as opposed to building a city on the ocean. And in reality, we'll probably have both. There are a lot of prototypes and models and designs of Martian living as well as oceanic living. So we'll probably have both, and it's a real shame, though, that space exploration is so expensive, and we have so many things that we need to do first here on Earth, like first even just getting food, clothing, and shelter to the massive population, but it's still fascinating to think about living on Mars, or to think about going back to the moon and creating a more stable structure on the moon. And, for example, we could very easily have some sort of base on the moon. If we can have an international space station, why can't we have a structure built on the moon, more of a just more permanent location? Then the moon's going to be colonized as well, and it's all going to start. The solar system is going to be bustling with humans. And this is why it's just such a fascinating time to live. And we are on the verge of some monumental changes in human development. And just the thought of, having human beings on Mars walking on the red planet, and even if that's not you, that could be your children up there. It is a fascinating time to be alive, and maybe one day we'll be living on Uranus just like I have predicted. Oh, wouldn't that be something? And I don't know, I would love to explore that model some more, if anything, just for science fiction. And well, anyway, what do you guys think? What part of space exploration is fascinating to you? Would you ever want to live on Mars, live on a base on the moon, or do you think there's any other destination in the universe outside of Earth that you would find more suitable for human life? If you have anything to say at all, I would love to hear about it, and post it in the comments section. Let's just expand the discussion. Okay, talk to you soon.